In part 1 of this tutorial, I'll be introducing enter and exit motions. Before starting, it's good practice to make sure all the elements in your scenes are finalized before adding enter and exit motions. The character panel appears on the left of the video maker. Add a motion to our character by clicking the button. As you can see, a range of settings are now displayed. We'll look at these settings in more detail in part 2, but for now, I'll highlight just a few. The motion menu determines whether your character will enter into the scene or exit from the scene. There's also a movement option, which will be looked at in a later tutorial. For now, I'll leave this option set to enter. The style menu is where you choose all the different enter-exit motions. Click the down arrow on the box to open the menu, then use the scroll bar to move up and down the list. You should try all the items to see what they do, but for now, I'll select the hand slide motion. At the bottom of the Enter-Exit tab, all the enter-exit motions in the scene are now listed. The current motion being worked on will be selected. Before we finish, I'll add an exit motion to my character by clicking the plus sign icon at the top of the motions list. As you can see, a new movement motion is added to the list, and all the settings above the list are now the settings for our currently selected movement motion. I want an exit motion, so I'll change the motion box to exit and leave all the other settings at the default. Each character, prop, or text box can only have one enter and one exit motion applied to it within the same scene. You can also have several items in the same scene, all with different motions, though it's a good idea to limit the number of motions within a scene to no more than 10 to ensure the best playback. I'll preview my enter and exit motions by clicking the preview button. You'll see my character is added to the scene by a sliding hand and then slides off the screen a moment later. To add more than one enter-exit motion, simply select or add another item to your scene and follow the same process we just went through. I'll add another character. With multiple enter-exit motions in a scene, you can change the order with which they occur simply by selecting them in the enter-exit motions list and dragging and dropping them up or down the list. The motions at the top will play first. To remove an enter-exit motion, simply select the motion you want to remove in the list and click the trash can icon. That's the end of part 1 of this tutorial. In part 2, I'll look at the settings in more detail. In part 2 of my Enter and Exit Motions tutorial, I'll be describing the settings on the Enter-Exit tab in more detail. As you can see, I have a scene on the Video Maker stage with the 2 characters that I set up in part 1. I'll select my second character, which will bring up the character panel. On the Enter-Exit tab, the settings for its current slide, enter motion, are displayed. Starting from the top, let's look at each setting. The motion menu determines whether your character will enter into the scene or exit from the scene. There's also a movement option, which will be looked at in a later tutorial. The timing menu determines whether you want this motion to occur at the same time as any previous enter-exit motion in the scene, or if you want it to occur after the previous motion is completed. The delay box setting determines whether the current motion will begin straight away, when set to 0, or will be delayed a set number of seconds. Use the up-down arrows on the box to adjust this. The duration setting box determines the length of time a motion will last. The higher the number, the slower the motion. For most enter-exit motions, 1 second is a good speed, but there may be times you want to adjust this. The style menu is where you choose all the different enter-exit motions. Click the down arrow on the box to open the menu, then use the scroll bar to move up and down the list. Try all the items to see what they do. Next to the Style menu is another drop-down menu with arrows in it. This menu only appears for specific motions that require additional directional settings. For the hand slide motion, the arrow indicates which side of the scene the hand will appear. At the bottom of the Enter-Exit tab, all the motions in the scene are listed. The current motion you're working on will be selected. If you mouse over each motion in the list, you'll see 2 icons appear in the upper right corner of their list box. The first is the sound effect toggle icon. Turn this on, and a swoosh sound will play with your enter-exit motion. The second is the trash can icon to remove a motion. With multiple enter-exit motions in a scene, you can change the order with which they occur simply by selecting them in the enter-exit motions list and dragging and dropping them up or down the list. The motions at the top will play first. Now that we've looked at all the settings in detail, here are some of the various enter and exit motions you can try for yourself in action. To find them, use the Style menu on the Enter-Exit tab. That's the end of part 2 of this tutorial. Try experimenting with enter and exit motions yourself to see what each one does and how the various settings affect them. You'll be using them creatively in your own animations in no time at all.